This is my 2001 F350 with the legendary 7.3 liter Powerstroke diesel. But we're having some legendary issues. Not at all related to the engine, but the truck feels like it's sliding on ice going around corners while it's dry. And the steering wheel moves on its own while it's driving or trying to drive straight down the road. It all started when I was taking the truck and trailer to help my neighbor Steve pick up a car. The entire ride, the truck wasn't turning when I was turning the wheel, like my wheel was about to fall off. So I dropped my trailer, had my brother come hitch to my trailer to tow my truck home, but alas, it doesn't fit on my own trailer. I limped the truck home, where we discovered the pitman arm was moving around in the steering shaft. Not ideal. And the rear caliper was seized shut, making the rear rotor get to almost 300 degrees. Not related to the steering or suspension being wonky, but could be, and still not good. And I thought it might just be those two problems. And that was very wishful thinking. By the time this truck is back on the road, almost 5 months from now, the total repair bill to get it back on the road, if I brought it to a shop, would be thousands and thousands of dollars. We've got a very, very long list to do, and by the end, some very, very cruel surprises show up. But we also get some pretty cool upgrades too. So let's dig in. First, we jacked up the truck and pulled off the wheels, where we discovered the extent of the braking problem.
Ugh, you can see the metal shavings in this one. Look at, jeez. From the caliper going metal to metal.
Next, we moved back up to the front to pull the SSBC calipers off, which took longer than I thought.
Top bolt here is a 13/16. Bottom one, not a 13/16. Why did they do that? Why would they do that? It's just to make me aggravated, isn't it? Well, they've succeeded.
Once I finally found the correct size socket for the odd duckling caliper bolt, we pulled the brake hose off, then fought to pry the caliper off the rotor before removing the ABS sensor, then the rotor itself. The new rotor goes on, which I should specify is not an SSBC rotor, but rather one from O'Reilly's. Then it's back to battling the caliper to get the old pad out. Then we get a little help from the weather.
It seems like every time I try to work on this truck, do a bigger project on this truck, it starts to rain. No, really, every single time it starts to rain when I try to do something to this. So I have erected myself this nice little shelter, again, because my truck is too big to fit in the garage. So this is what we're working with. I love it. This is great. It's so roomy in here.
Now that we're dry, it's back to continuing our fight with the SSBC caliper, which does not seem to want to let the brake pad out.
Now, originally, I was gonna try to save the brake pads that are in here because I'm pretty sure I just put those in last year, not long after getting the truck. But unfortunately, I think this caliper's so fucked up that I can't get the pads out, or else I'm too stupid to figure out how to get the pads out. And as I'm fighting with them, I'm not treating them the best, so I'm kind of nervous that I might mess one up. So I just am gonna put new pads in there. Might as well. It's not worth messing around. This thing is in need of them anyways, obviously. So we went with these bad Larrys. Ooh, so fancy. Wow, that is just great. I wish O'Reilly's would sponsor me. I'm there literally every single day. Every day.
So because the SSBC caliper was seized and I couldn't seem to fix it, and I couldn't afford to replace it either, the fancy O'Reilly brake pads went into new stock calipers. And onto the passenger side. Off came the SSBC caliper, pads, and rotors, and on went the same stock rotors, calipers, and fancy pants pads as the other side. The rear brakes went on nice and easy. The driver's side just got new pads and rotors in the back, while the passenger side needed a new caliper too. Luckily, these weren't SSBC, instead just stocks. With all the new brakes installed, it was time to fix the next issue.
The observant viewer will note it is a different day and the brakes are done. I finished up all four corners of the brakes, and they've all been bled, which is great news because that means the truck will stop. But in order to have something to stop, you have to have the truck, moving. And to have the truck moving, you need to start it up. And that's something that we can't really do right now. You can, but it doesn't start very good. I'll climb in so you guys can hear, but it's probably not going to do it now, of course. Yeah, see, of course it's going to... See, of course, now it's going to start up absolutely, fine, no problems. But for the past few days, it's been very slowly cranking, or else it goes like, and then starts up. It's just struggling. So what I have done is I brought the truck to Batteries Plus to have them test both the batteries, and the batteries checked out fine. Both the batteries had plenty of juice to crank the truck, to start it up. And so then I thought maybe it could be the battery cables. And so I went under, traced them down to the starter, shook them around, nothing really changed. So to rather be safe than sorry, I'm just gonna throw a new starter motor in the damn thing. It's not very hard to do, I'll show you. They aren't terribly expensive for the one that I got, and I'll show you the one I got. I don't know why there's a golf ball up here. I don't play golf. So here is, oh my God, that's heavy. Add this box to the rest of the collection we have going on here. Anyways, here is the starter I went with. And as you can see, it's a Ford. See, the problem is, like many parts on these trucks, is everyone has a different opinion about every single part. That was no different when I was looking for a starter, which starter was best. Everyone says, oh, you can, put the 6.4 on, or you can put a 6.0 in there, or you can do a Master Pro or the Master Bait. There's too many different options. So I just went with the Motorcraft. This is the one I had to go with. It's the SA817RM, and it's remanufactured. I think it's remanufactured. It's heavy, that's for sure. Jeez, how the hell do you get to this thing? I see you in there. I'm trying to get you out. What the heck am I supposed to do here? Guess we're gonna have to go force on here. I'm prying it out of the... Now it's a pit bull. Aha, yes. Remanufactured. Just like I said. Now, in case you didn't notice, you join me under the truck now with the starter. There it is right up there. This really shouldn't be that difficult. Famous last words.
First, we fought at an odd angle to find the correct socket and removed the electrical connections. Then unbolted the starter itself, the easier ones anyway.
Now, some of you guys may have a 2-bolt starter, and lucky you. I have the 3-bolt model, which means there's one last little bolt that's up here on top of the starter right there, where you can't see it. I'm gonna not record this part because I don't want to teach you guys any new creative swear words. Back in a few. All right, come on now, nice and gentle. Don't drop on your face. Here's the starter. Well, here's the old one, and here's the new old one, and it looks like they're pretty damn close. It's time to throw this one in the truck.
I should probably note, it's always a wise idea to disconnect the battery before doing something like this, and even an idiot like myself surely did before putting in the new starter.
All right, new starter's in. Looks just like the old one, and I believe I tightened up our power cable tight enough. So now we're gonna go reconnect the batteries, and then we'll crank this thing up and, well, make sure it starts.
The truck started up great, but it was now time to turn our attention once again to the steering and suspension, the main issues with the truck.
Now, the next thing that's gonna be happening to the truck is these. I almost called them U-joints, ball joints, upper and lower ball joints on the front left side. With the help of my neighbor, we jacked the truck up, jacked that wheel up, used a crowbar, and there was a ton of play in that side, which of course contributed to the god-awful steering and the feeling like this thing was about to throw itself off the road. So the ones I went with are Dana Spicer. That's supposedly the OEM stuff. is Dana. There's a million different brands. You can get ones that are greasable. I was on the fence. I went with the ones that aren't greasable. I recognize the Dana name. I know they're really good. Sure, I'd like to have the ability to grease them, but from what I was reading on forums and stuff, people kind of said to just stick with these. This is my first time doing ball joints, so this should be fun.
We put the truck on the ground to do more diagnosing and to get to this point. So back up in the air she goes, and off comes the wheels and tires and nice new brake components we just put on. Out comes the cotter pin holding the tie rod end bolt, and then out comes the bolt itself. I then gave the knuckle a few wussy taps, which clearly didn't work. Then a few more wussy taps, but with a bigger hammer. Then Papa Bear came to help. And we separated the knuckle from the tie rod end. After destroying the rusted cotter pin holding the castle nut on the upper ball joint, we could then break out the big guns and loosen the castle nut itself.
Hallelujah, it's moving.
And we get quite the workout getting it off.
Yeah, I just farted. Shouldn't have gone to the gym today, though.
Almost off.
Yeah, kind of. Hallelujah, it's off. Almost. That's hot.
After letting my hurt little baby hand heal overnight, we pulled off the wheel hub, followed by the axle, which took a few different attempts at a few different angles, but it finally came out.
There it is.
With the axle finally out of the way, we could start on loosening the nut on the lower ball joint, which proved no easier than the upper nut.
All right, now the knuckle assembly is just about out of the truck. The only thing that I have left to do is to just actually separate the ball joints from the knuckle, both upper and lower, but everything is done for now. And I'm gonna kind of pause this part of the project for now because I actually need to wait till later tonight. My neighbor, who's a mechanic, Steve, is gonna be bringing home a ball joint press so I can actually get these out of there, out of the old knuckle, and press the new ones in. So we're gonna pause this for now and move on to something that I'm very excited about. Now the next thing that we're putting in the truck is this. This is a blue top steering gearbox, otherwise known as the way to make a 20-year-old truck steer like a new one. And that excites me because this thing has steered like crap for far too long. So we're gonna pull the old steering box out. I believe it's the original one that came on the truck, I'm thinking. And I also have a replacement pitman arm that I'll show you guys in a minute, but all this needs to be replaced. This all needs, it's all messed up now. And this is going to be a very, very nice upgrade.
I cannot wait to feel what this truck drives like with this new Blue Top box. A massive thank you to Blue Top for sending me this box, and I'll include a link down below to their website so you can get your own Blue Top steering box and transform the way your vehicle steers.
So we're gonna put that new steering box in the truck, but I'm gonna do it a little bit different way than most people will tell you to do it.
Because my pitman arm was not moving correctly on the sector shaft coming out of my old steering box, both needed to be replaced. It was just the smartest thing to do. Plus, as soon as I read about how much of an upgrade in the steering feel guys were getting on the forums after putting in a Blue Top steering box, I knew I absolutely needed one in the truck.
All right, so what I was gonna do to access the all the stuff to remove the old power steering box was, I read on a couple things that said you just pull the inner fender liner here, as opposed to basically doing the same things that we just did a few months back when we changed the power steering pump. We had to pull this out, the intercooler pipe there, pull this, pull the battery. It's not that stuff's difficult, it's time consuming. So I'm slow as it is, and this seemed like a way to speed things up. So I went to remove these bolts that hold the inner fender liner in there, and both of them are already spinning. And then I looked and I saw that you really actually don't even need to remove this whole thing to begin with. You can kind of just push it back out of the way, and then you can see in here, there's one of our power steering lines, there's the other right there, and the bolts that we need to pull the steering box out are actually right here, 1, 2, 3. So that actually doesn't need to come out. We can do everything from here. Aha! I almost forgot something very important before doing this. We need to go inside. We need to make sure the wheel's straight, and then we have to take a seat belt and wrap it around there so that it doesn't move. Because if this moves during the installation and when you pull the steering shaft off, I don't know exactly what happens, but it's not good.
With my grubby little hands washed off, I could now artistically lock the steering wheel in place with the driver's seatbelt. We slide back the plastic shield, then remove the pinch bolt that clamps the steering shaft to the steering box before prying the shaft up and off the input shaft. Then removed the input and return lines going into the steering box.
All right, the steering shaft is off of the steering box. The 2 power steering lines are off as well. Now it's time to remove these 3 mounting bolts that hold the actual steering box up. But before we can actually drop the box, we have to remove the steering linkage here that attaches to the pitman arm. We're not going to remove the pitman arm under here while it's still attached to the steering box, because then we'd have to remove this track bar drop bracket again, and I already did that once and I don't want to do it again. And we really don't need to. So all we're going to do here is undo the castle nut up top, remove the cotter pin, undo the castle nut, and then give that a few whacks, and hopefully the steerage linkage drops right out from the pitman arm, and then we can go about dropping the box.
First, we pull out the cotter pin on the bolt holding the steering linkage to the pitman arm, then remove the castle nut, before separating the linkage from the pitman arm. Now that the steering box was free from the linkage, we can finally undo the 3 mounting bolts holding the steering box to the frame, which was a bit of a chore thanks to good old New England rust. Nothing a little heat, PB blaster, and leverage can't fix. But I finally reigned victorious, and out came the old steering box and pitman arm. With the old worn-out steering box out, we could now tighten the new pitman arm onto the new blue top box.
That's how it works right there. Yeah,
That's pretty straight on, yeah.
And double-checked that everything was in alignment.
So last night quite a bit happened, and my phone just decided to be glitchy and on and off recorded little bits of everything. But lots of progress was made. You'll notice the knuckle, the ball joints are out, and the knuckle is gone. I was fully expecting, as I said, my neighbor Steve, who is a mechanic, a real mechanic, not a YouTube idiot. He was supposed to come over with the tools, the press, and press out the old ones and press in the new ball joints for me. And he instead could read my mind, brought over pickle forks, because my dad and I were beating on those things for a long time. Actually messed up a pickle fork in the process. I pickled my pickle fork. And he ended up just taking the whole entire knuckle with the new ball joints to work to his actual shop to press them out and press the new ones in. So that's very helpful, and I'm very appreciative for that. What we also did, as you can see here, we put the new Rough Country drop pitman arm onto the new steering box. Torqued it down and made sure that we were all lined up. Blue top from the factory has everything lined up, and you just have to keep it like that throughout the installation and you'll be good to go. What a difference, what an improvement. It's gonna be a very nice upgrade to have. I'm super excited to get this thing in. Which is what we're actually gonna start with now. I'm going to put the new box in, bolt it up, put the steering shaft on, put the steering linkage on, and then I'm not sure, baby steps.
First, we blew the rust out of the mounting holes, and then went to the parts store because I forgot to get replacement bolts this morning. Back at the house, I fought to not crush my face with the beautiful shiny new blue top steering box as I mounted it back into place. Then reinstalled the input and return lines into the new steering box, then wiggled the steering shaft back onto the input shaft of the steering box and tightened the pinch bolt. Reattached the steering linkage to the pitman arm. Then later that night, neighbor Steve came by with the knuckle with fresh upper and lower ball joints pressed in. We then installed the knuckle, tightened down the castle nuts, and pressed in a new seal. All right, so some major progress on the truck last night, except for I couldn't film much of it because I had to be, holding things and helping out. I couldn't just stand there with the camera, but it is a massive help
that my neighbor Steve came and helped me with all of this, as well as my father. So he pressed in the upper and lower ball joints for me, and he also brought home a press so I could press that that new seal in. And then I had a few questions on things that I wasn't sure about up here with the steering shaft, as well as the pitman arm to the steering linkage. I had a few questions about those that I needed his expertise on before I installed them, and now I know what to do. This truck better be on the ground by tonight, working well. We've got a lot to do today.
First, we torqued down the castle nut holding the steering linkage to the pitman arm and installed the cotter pin. Then, to make sure the steering shaft was all the way down onto the input shaft of the steering box, seems kind of important, I removed the pinch bolt, gave the shaft a few love taps, then retightened down the pinch bolt. Tightened the castle nut holding the tie rod end, then smoothed out the mounting face of the knuckle. After greasing everything up, we can put back in the hub assembly and tighten the 4 bolts on the back. Then install the washer, the hex washer, and the second round washer. Then this stupid, cursed little snap ring. Now I can put in the locking hub assembly and the snap ring. Back into the knuckle goes the ABS sensor, as well as the new caliper and rotor, followed by the Bora wheel spacer to finally get this thing back on the ground.
Truck is on the ground. I'm gonna move the tools out of the way. I'm gonna start the truck up. I already topped it off with ATF power steering fluid. I'm gonna let the truck warm up, and then we'll go for a drive and see how it is. I'm nervous.
The ball joints definitely needed to be done, and I drove the truck for a few days and even brought it to Ford to get an alignment. But unfortunately, the truck still wasn't going down the road right. It still felt like it had a mind of its own, and still felt like it was driving on ice around corners.
The steering box, I'll get more into it later, but the steering box is fantastic. It is incredible, but the problem is I'm still having other problems. There's something that is still just taking the wheel and just, this thing is all over the place. So we're gonna bring it up front, put it up in the air, and jack the front end up anyways. And I've got a few things that I need to look at because it's weird and it's kind of scary. I almost had to pull over yesterday, and I almost called a tow truck because it was bad. So first, let's hear a nice cold start because it's about 20. It's gonna be 22 degrees outside right now. It's freezing, so it should make for a good cold start.
I checked the U-joints after reading instructions on how to do it on an F350 forum. It said to jack up the side you think is bad, turn that wheel all the way to the side, then lock one hub at a time, and try to spin the tire. The forum post said if there's any binding, it could be a seized U-joint. Well, on the passenger side, the side I thought was bad, I couldn't turn the wheel at all, which meant a serious issue.
Okay, so yesterday we found out that the passenger side U-joint is obviously pretty messed up. That's not supposed to happen. I should have been able to move the wheel at least a little bit, and I couldn't move it at all. I mean, I'm practically Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I couldn't even budge that thing. But the problem is, tonight is my Fill the Ford Animal Shelter donation drive, so the truck is going to be up at Walmart for the weekend. So when the truck comes back Monday, that's when I'll tackle swapping out the U-joint. It should be all right. The Walmart's only, 15 minutes away from here. I'll just have to drive carefully, and obviously I've been driving it long enough. It should be okay. It should make it. Fingers crossed.
But unfortunately, it wasn't fine. As I pulled into the Walmart parking lot, I heard a bang. The steering wheel ripped out of my hand.
The steering wheel won't even turn. It's fighting really bad. And the brake is all...
And the oh-so-familiar fragrance of automatic transmission fluid filled my nostrils.
You can hear that. Something's really messed up. Really messed up.
This clearly wasn't good. and I was curious if all this stemmed from the work I was doing to all the steering and suspension.
Oh yeah, that's a mess. That is a mess. Smell the ATF heavily. Again, it's everywhere. I didn't think I was ever gonna get that smell out of my nose when I did the power steering pump and then the steering gear, and it's returned once more. I need to at least try to get this thing in a position so that the tow truck can get me kind of angled in here, so it's not gonna be able to get in front of me. And this isn't exactly a small vehicle.
So, for the first time since having AAA for 3 years, I pulled that dusty card out of my wallet and called for a tow home, which was a spectacle to watch. I hopped in the tow truck, where we headed back to actually my neighbor Steve's house, and dropped the truck next to my brother Tyler's 6.0 Ford, funny enough, the one that hasn't broken down. I was very curious to see just what completely disabled the truck like that. All right, so earlier this morning, my dad and I came out to the truck to try to find out what was causing all this messed up steering and brakes, and we found the problem, and it's not as bad as I thought. So you'll notice the truck is not in my driveway. It's at my neighbor Steve's house, the one who's been helping me all along with this, the newfound problems on the F350. So we did a little digging, and we found out that under here, let me see if I can even get you guys to see this. Hold on a second. All right, there it is. So the power steering hose, the pressure hose, was chafing on the shock mount, that if you guys remember, you watched one of my first F350 videos where I did all the mods, where I put on the Bilsteins. I put on this shock tower. This is a factory OEM for this truck. And I guess from reading on the forums, it's not uncommon for people to have chafing in this steering hose and for it to leak. And you should have seen the way that this thing leaked out. When it sprayed out, it just misted everything. As you can see, this is all soaking wet. So this is the line that goes right up there. Let's see, goes to our power steering pump, and it comes down here, goes up, and goes all the way up to our hydro booster, which explains why we lost brakes and steering. So hopefully the line at the power steering pump isn't that difficult to get off, because I just had that off 6 months ago when I did the new power steering pump. The one at the hydro boost, that might be a different story. So for right now, I'm gonna try to get the fitting off the hydro boost, get it off of the power steering pump, and we'll go from there. To my surprise, the fitting at the hydro boost wasn't that hard to get off. So next we moved down to the fitting at the power steering pump. All right, here it is. You can see that it's been chafing in many spots actually. Got a mark right there, mark right there, mark right there. Oop. I am a biohazard. All right, not horrible. Very tedious on the fingers though. All right, thank God they actually had the line that I needed. I, for some reason, was expecting to get here and hear that it wasn't available or something, or there was a nationwide back order on it, but we got it. Now the fun part. All right, so we've got the new hose and the old hose. They look like they are just about the same. Now this was $90 for this hose. I was gonna go aftermarket, get something from O'Reilly's, but unfortunately the reviews of the ones that they have in stock were not fantastic. And I don't want this to happen when I've got, 10,000 pounds behind me. So later that night, Dad and I got the new hose installed, filled it with fluid, started it up, and checked for leaks. Bled the system, checked once again for more leaks, and took it on a test drive. All right, it seems like for the most part, steering's working. We've got brakes again. Got a little bit of a whine. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear it. Oh, hush up. A little bit of a whine. Brakes feel good. Steering actually feels good. But when I took that corner, I definitely felt that little shimmy that I've been feeling, which is the main problem
that I still haven't fixed with all of this work. Seems to still be doing that like floaty, darty thing. But I think as far as the line goes, I think we fixed that. So at least that's one thing done. All right, so the test drive was successful after we installed the high pressure power steering hose. Now the last thing that we're gonna do that I think this needs until it's completely sorted out and fixed is the U-joint on the passenger side here. Now you guys remember I jacked it up. I did a few tests that they said to do, and I could not get this wheel to turn at all. So that either means that this U-joint's completely seized or I'm an idiot. So the goal for today is to get that new U-joint in, take this on a test drive, see if it's sorted. Needs to go down the road straight and not feel like you're gonna slide off the road and you take a corner and have the steering wheel not move on its own. Just needs to be fixed. This project needs to be complete because I love this thing and I just wanna drive it. So we started the process by jacking up the truck and pulling off the Bora wheel spacers before Dad decided he wanted to join in on the fun. So next off came the caliper, rotor, hub, and then the pesky little snap ring, which brought out colorful language from Dad.
They suck.
I intensely watched Dad struggle with the snap ring and add more colorful and diverse language to my dictionary before attempting to get it out myself, which I failed at. Next, we battled with the axle for a long time before it finally gave up, and we were exposed to just how messed up the truck is.
Look at that. Oh, the problem. We're going one side, not the other. Wow. Look at that thing's frozen.
The other side won't even go. Wow.
Won't even move.
So that's why I couldn't turn the wheel then, that way.
That's it.
Wow.
The U-joint would move one way, but wouldn't budge an inch the other way. That is not supposed to be like that. We battled again to get the U-joint apart and out of the axle, but it really didn't want to come apart. It was really, really seized in there. All right, so we had a little bit of a switch up with the U-joint, with this whole process. So I'm gonna walk you through it. All right, so as you guys saw, we got the axle out. We tried to get the U-joint out here to no avail. Thing was really stuck in there. So my neighbor across the street, Steve, who you guys have seen a bunch in this video, who's helped me out a ton with this whole steering suspension fix progress. He brought the U-joint to his shop, attempted to press it out, and it turns out it was actually so stuck in there that he had to cut it out. It was really, it was screwed. Absolutely screwed. So he got the old one out, went to put the new one in, according to the part number that Ford gave him, and it didn't fit. So he contacted a few more places, finally got one from Napa, I think, pressed it in, and then last night at like 8 o'clock, I just left for my pickup soccer game. He showed up with the axle with the U-joint in, and him and my dad installed it at like 8:30 at night. And I got no footage. I'm very appreciative of them for doing that, because it makes what I have to do now much easier. So all we have to do now is put on the hub, put on the rotor, put on the caliper, button everything up, put the wheel back on, take it for a drive, see what happens. So I started by cleaning up the surface where the hub mounts to before putting on the dust shield incorrectly. Then put back on the hub and tightened all the bolts down. Again, completely unaware I would have to take all of this off again to fix my mistake. Then put back in the pesky snap ring and the hub. Again, not realizing my mistake still, that would make me have to disassemble all of this work I'm doing in about 5 minutes. I didn't even film the rage and anger when I realized the dust shield was on backwards. There aren't enough sensor beeps in the world. But I put it back on correctly, fixed my mistake, put on the wheel hub, the four-wheel drive locking hub, rotor, caliper, ABS sensor, tightened up the Bora wheel spacer before finally getting the truck on the ground and seeing what happens. Well, my own stupidity has costed me a little bit of time on this one, but I think we're done. I think we're finished. It's time.
I put the wheels on, spacers on, wheels on, torqued everything down, truck is on the ground. Let's start this thing up, take it around the block, and see what happens. This is a big moment. This is a big moment. This has been months in the making. Let's go. Don't mind the interesting seat cover. That's because I'm filthy right now. Moment of truth. I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm very concerned. Feels good so far. The ABS light was on. That was already on from the last from when we did the ball joints. But it feels good. It's so weird because the truck would feel fine, and then all of a sudden it would just do this crazy, weird, wacky thing, and it was scary. The freaking thing felt like it, you know, sometimes it wasn't going to turn where I wanted it to, and then other times I'd be turning and it wouldn't, and then it would just like jump and freaking go flying over. But I think we're all right. I think we're all right. We just took a pretty sharp corner, and that's when it would do its thing. So I think we're good. Best part is now you can really feel that blue top steering gear working as it does. No hands on the wheel, truck drives straight. The steering feels like a new truck. It's unbelievable.
That is until